Have you ever prayed and realized halfway through that you weren't really there? The words were coming out, but your mind was somewhere else entirely. Your phone, your to do list, some random thought that had nothing to do with God. You finish, you say Amen. And honestly, you can't remember a single thing you just said. Maybe you've wondered if something's wrong with you, if your faith is too weak, if everyone else feels close to God when they pray, and you're the only one going through the motions. Here's what I want you to know before we go any further. This isn't a discipline problem. It's not about trying harder. It's a method problem. And today, we're going to fix it. If this is helping already, take a second to like this and subscribe. It genuinely helps this reach the people who need to hear it too. Now let's get into it. Let's start by clearing something up. A wandering mind during prayer does not mean weak faith. It doesn't mean you love God less than the person next to you who looks focused and still with their eyes closed. It means your mind is doing what minds do when they're not engaged. It drifts toward whatever feels more immediate. That's not a spiritual failure. That's just how attention works, in prayer or anywhere else. So here's the thesis of everything we're covering today. Boredom in prayer is a signal, not a sentence. It's not proof that something is wrong with you at your core. It's information. It's telling you that the way you've been praying has gone stale, and it's time to change the method, not punish yourself into paying attention through sheer willpower. Because here's the truth about prayer that a lot of us were never taught growing up. It was never meant to be a performance or a script you recite until the words lose all their meaning. It was meant to be an honest exchange between two people who actually know each other. Think about how Hannah prayed in the temple, so raw and unpolished that the priest watching her assumed she was drunk because her lips were moving but no sound was coming out, just grief pouring through her. She wasn't reciting anything memorized. She was pouring out exactly what was in her own way, on her own terms. That's the model we're working from today, not perfect language, honest presence. Once you see prayer that way, boredom starts to make a lot more sense. Nobody stays engaged in a conversation that's just the same lines, repeated the same way, at the same time, every single day. That's not a flaw in you. That's simply what happens to anything, a conversation, a routine, a relationship, once it's allowed to run entirely on autopilot. So why does this happen to almost everyone, even people who genuinely love God and want to feel close to Him? There are a few honest reasons, and none of them involve you being spiritually deficient. First, repetition without attention. When you say the same words enough times, your mouth learns to move without your mind being involved at all. That's not unique to prayer. It happens with anything memorized, from a national anthem to a phone number you've dialed 1,000 times. The words become furniture in the room. They're there, but you stop noticing them, and eventually you stop hearing yourself say them. Second, most of us tend to treat prayer like a checklist item, something to get through before bed, before a meal, before the day officially starts. Once something becomes a box to check rather than a moment to enter into, engagement naturally drops. That's not a character flaw or a lack of devotion. That's simply how checklists work on the human brain. They're built for speed, not presence. Third, most of us were only ever taught one posture, one format, one tone for prayer. Folded hands, closed eyes, formal, borrowed language, and almost always just asking for things. When there's only ever one mode available, of course it eventually goes flat. Any relationship that only ever happens in one format, at one volume, tends to lose its spark over time, and prayer is no exception. Now here's the flip side, and this is the part that actually matters most. When prayer becomes honest and varied, when it changes shape depending on what you actually need to say in that moment, attentiveness comes back almost on its own. You don't have to force focus through gritted teeth. Focus tends to follow honesty, not the other way around. Look at how David prayed throughout the Psalms. Sometimes he's praising God with everything in him, full of gratitude and wonder. Other times he's furious, confused, even openly accusing God of abandoning him in the middle of real danger. That range is exactly why his prayers still feel alive thousands of years later, read by people who've never met him. He wasn't reciting a formula someone handed him. He was actually talking, the way you'd talk to someone you trusted enough to be fully honest with. None of this means the old familiar prayers you grew up with are wrong or worthless. Structure has its place, and there's real comfort in words that generations before you have also prayed. The issue isn't that structure exists. The issue is when structure becomes the only thing you ever reach for, so that it stops being a door into honesty and starts being a wall that keeps honesty out. So let's get practical. Here are 4 ways to pray that interrupt the autopilot and bring your attention back into the room. 1. Conversational prayer. This simply means speaking plainly, the way you'd talk to someone sitting across the table from you instead of reaching for formal or borrowed language you think you're supposed to use. If you wouldn't say it out loud to a close friend, don't force it into your prayer either. Say what's actually true for you right now in your own words, even if it comes out clumsy or unpolished. 2. Silent listening prayer. Most of us only ever talk in prayer and never actually stop to listen for anything in return. Try this instead. After you've said what you needed to say, go quiet on purpose. Not to fill the silence with more words out of discomfort, but to actually sit inside it for a minute or two. This interrupts boredom almost immediately because it removes the script completely. There's nothing left to recite, just presence and attention. 3. Embodied prayer. Boredom isn't only a mental thing, it's physical too. Changing your posture, praying while walking instead of sitting still, praying outside instead of in the same chair every single time. Small physical shifts signal to your mind that this moment is genuinely different from the last 100 times you've done this. Your body, noticing this is new, does a lot of work your willpower simply can't do on its own. 4. Honest, raw prayer. This is the one most people quietly skip. Bringing frustration, doubt, exhaustion, even anger into prayer instead of performing calm and positivity you don't actually feel. When you stop editing yourself for God's benefit, prayer stops feeling like a performance you're managing and starts feeling like a relationship you're actually inside of because something real is happening instead of something staged. You don't need to use all 4 of these today or even this week. Just notice which one you're most starved of. The one that feels most unfamiliar or uncomfortable, and start there. That discomfort is usually pointing you exactly where you need to go. Here's exactly how to put all of this into practice over the next 7 days without overhauling your entire life overnight. Step 1. Prepare your intention. Before you start praying, take 5 seconds to actually name why you're praying right now, not just that you're supposed to because it's a habit. I'm praying because I'm anxious about tomorrow is a real intention. Because it's what I do before bed isn't. It's just muscle memory, wearing the shape of prayer. Step 2. Pick one of the 4 types from the last section. Don't try to do all of them at once, and don't treat this like a checklist you have to complete. Choose the one that felt most unfamiliar to you or the one you're most curious about, and commit to practicing just that one this week. Step 3. Set a small, specific window. Not, I'll pray more as some vague future intention. Instead, 5 minutes right after you wake up, or 10 minutes on your lunch break, something you can actually picture happening today. A vague intention rarely survives a busy week. A specific window usually does. Step 4. Say one honest sentence before anything else. Before you fall back into familiar words or old routines, say one true thing out loud or in your head first. It can be as simple as, I'm tired, or I don't understand what's happening right now, or I'm angrier about this than I want to admit. That one honest sentence breaks the autopilot before it ever has a chance to take over. Step 5. Close gently. Don't rush straight back into your phone or the rest of your day the second you're technically done. Take a few seconds of quiet before you move on to whatever's next. Let the moment actually land instead of getting swallowed immediately by the next notification or task. That's it. 5 small steps, 1 week, 1 type of prayer. This isn't about transforming your entire spiritual life in a single sitting. It's about interrupting the pattern just enough for something honest to actually get through. Before we go any further, I want to be straight with you about what this actually feels like in practice, because nobody talks about this part enough. 1. It's going to feel awkward at first, maybe even for the first few weeks. Speaking honestly instead of reciting familiar memorized words feels strange after years of the same routine. That awkwardness isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's simply what happens the first few times you try something unfamiliar, in prayer or anywhere else in life. 2. Old habits will creep back in, probably sooner than you'd like. There will be days you catch yourself back on autopilot, saying the same lines without really noticing you're doing it again. That doesn't mean the practice failed or that you've undone all your progress. It means you're human, and old patterns take real repetition to loosen their grip. 3. Some sessions will still feel completely flat, even after weeks of practicing this. This isn't a promise that every single prayer from now on will feel emotional or powerful or obviously meaningful. Some days it'll feel ordinary, even a little dull. Consistency matters far more than intensity here. Showing up honestly, even when it's quiet and uneventful, is still doing the work underneath the surface. If you're finding this helpful so far, drop a comment and tell me which of the 4 types from earlier you're planning to try first. I actually want to know, and it helps other people scrolling through the comments decide where to start too. As you start putting this into practice, there are a few mistakes that trip people up early on. Let's walk through them so you can skip past them entirely. Mistake 1: turning it into a performance. If you start praying differently, mainly so you can post about it, announce it publicly, or look spiritually serious in front of other people, you've just swapped one kind of autopilot for a different one wearing new clothes. This entire practice is between you and God. Keep it there, even when it's tempting to make it visible. Mistake 2: quitting after one flat session. A lot of people try one honest prayer, don't feel an immediate shift or emotional breakthrough, and assume the whole approach didn't work for them. Growth here is slow and cumulative, not instant or dramatic. One session was never the test. A full week, practiced consistently, is a much fairer one. Mistake 3: turning this into a brand new rulebook. It's tempting to take the 4 types from earlier and treat them like a rigid formula you now have to follow perfectly, in order, every single day. Don't do that to yourself. The entire point of this was to escape rigid formulas, not trade one for another. Stay flexible. Some days, conversational prayer will fit what you're feeling. Other days, silence will fit better. Let it move with you instead of boxing you back in. If you notice yourself falling into any of these 3, don't treat it as proof you've ruined the process. Just notice it, adjust, and keep going. Awareness is most of the fix. So, what actually changes when you practice this consistently, week after week? Attentiveness comes back, and not through force or gritted teeth discipline, but naturally, because there's finally something real happening worth paying attention to. Honesty grows, and along with it comes a kind of quiet relief. You stop performing for an audience of one and start actually showing up as you genuinely are, unfiltered. Prayer stops feeling like a ritual you're managing on a schedule and starts feeling like a relationship you're actually living inside of, day to day. And little by little, small moments of real, unmistakable connection start showing up more often than they used to. Not constant emotional highs or dramatic encounters, just quiet moments where you know without question that something real just happened between you and God. That's the entire goal here. Not perfect prayers polished and rehearsed, real ones, even when they're messy. And the strange thing is, once prayer starts to feel real again, it tends to spill into the rest of your day too. You notice more, you carry less tension, you're a little more present with the people around you. That's not a coincidence. A life where you're actually known by God tends to shape everything else it touches. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Pray honestly, pray simply, and expect it to feel different, because it genuinely will if you let it. You don't need to fix your entire prayer life all at once. Just take one thing from everything we covered, one honest sentence, one type of prayer from the 4 we walked through, 5 minutes set aside tomorrow morning, and actually try it. That's enough to start something real. If this helped you see prayer differently, share it with someone who's been feeling exactly what we talked about today, quietly going through the motions and wondering if something's wrong with them. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Prayer was never meant to be background noise running in the back of your day. It was meant to be real, honest, and alive. So go be honest with God today, in whatever small way you can, and watch what slowly starts to shift. God bless you.